It's moving some of its nuclear-capable missiles out of the way into hiding, into underground bunkers, we presume. It doesn't make quite clear what they're doing with them, but it's certainly dispersing them. So it's preparing for an Iranian response on Israel. My suspicion is that this implies, the corollary is this implies that the deal that Biden has struck with Netanyahu is that there won't be an attack of the scale that would broaden the war. That's my reading of this, but it's speculation. But that's what I would read from these documents.
In terms of what we know so far and what's suggested in these intelligence documents, and especially looking at the scale at which this promised attack could happen on Iran, what would be the significance of this attack, especially in terms of the war so far?
Right. So this is, it has been pretty clear from the night of that ballistic missile attack that this is a key moment, not only for the Gaza war, but for the Middle East, perhaps the wider world. We've talked about this since the beginning of this conflict in Gaza. What is the chance of this escalating into a wider war? There are voices in Israel, there are voices in Washington that say that Iran is the single casus belli, is the motive factor that threatens Israel, therefore threatens, in American and Israeli views, peace in the Middle East. That if you somehow defang Iran, the Islamic Republic, which has, the destruction of Israel as part of its core ideology, and to achieve which it's funded all these militias across the Middle East, in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, now Yemen. Certainly the Hamas and Hezbollah most importantly at the moment. If you defang Iran, you can really reshape the Middle East and lower the threat to Israel. And, if you're an idealist, then maybe try and create a more peaceful Middle East at the end of it. That's the hawkish view. The dovish view, which is the view of President Biden, is that if you try and do that, there will be a massive reaction. Iran will attack American interests across the Middle East, including American allies. America has bases within very close range of Iran. It has central command. One of the three main branches of the American military is based in Qatar. It's got the Fifth Fleet in Bahrain. It's got military bases elsewhere. Very easy targets for Iran and, of course, its allies as well. Saudi Arabia, UAE. Are all very close to Iran. So Biden is saying don't do anything that would trigger an Iranian escalation into all-out war. The idea that Iran would say, well, if you're going to come after us as a regime, try and topple us as the Islamic Republic, we will go down fighting. That's a very dangerous moment for the Middle East. But there are voices pushing to call Iran's bluff, as they see it, on that one. So this is why we are where we are in these negotiations. As I say, underlying this leak, in my view, is my view, and it's only speculation, but it seems to be what I would read from these documents and the way they were leaked, is that Biden has won an agreement from Netanyahu that Netanyahu will push his response to the limits of what Iran can accept without broadening the war. So I think if he does this, and again, this is the other thing the documents show, is how Israel is preparing for a response. I think the agreement is that Israel will strike Iran in such a way that if Iran does retaliate, it will only retaliate again by striking back at Israel. So what you've seen is, again from these documents, is the Israeli Navy dispersing from the big port at Haifa. It's moving some of its nuclear-capable missiles out of the way into hiding, into underground bunkers, we presume. It doesn't make quite clear what they're doing with them, but it's certainly dispersing them. So it's preparing for an Iranian response on Israel. My suspicion is that this implies, the corollary is this implies that the deal that Biden has struck with Netanyahu is that there won't be an attack of the scale that would broaden the war. That's my reading of this, but it's speculation. But that's what I would read from these documents. The important thing is the size of this package, if you like. If that's all that Israel's going to do, then that kind of falls in the medium range of what Israel's retaliation could be. There's no indication from that they're going to try and wipe out Iran's nuclear program, which would require much more firepower than that. The documents themselves compare it to a strike in September on Yemen, where Israel retaliated for a drone attack on Israel by the Houthi rebels, who are an Iran-backed group in Yemen, who've also been attacking Western shipping and shipping that's heading for Israel in the Red Sea and the Arabian Sea. So that would not be a huge operation, be substantial. Those are, quite big armaments. Partly would depend, of course, on where they were aimed at, and the assumption is if they all got through, of course, they could do quite a substantial amount of damage to Iranian military bases. But that would be medium level response by Iran, as it wouldn't be a total destruction of its nuclear program, which is what America is afraid that Israel will try to do. So the only question really is, was there anything else that Israel is planning that wasn't picked up? I suppose it's possible that there were other exercises, other military bases, but then you'll think, well, why was this leaked and not that? But then there's also the question of assassinations, cyber attacks, both of which are things that Israel have done pretty successfully against Iran in the past. So combine all those together with with what was picked up by this intelligence, then you've got a fairly substantial attack.
And as you mentioned, there wasn't any indications about what or where they were targeting. But could we take an educated guess as to where this attack may take place? And also, when we talk about the scale of this attack as well, could you give us some detail into the impact that last attack had in Yemen?
Well, this is the million-dollar question. The Yemen attack was just basically attacked the port at Hodeidah, the big port in Yemen, which is the main supply line to the country as a whole, particularly during the civil war. When Yemen has become divided, Hodeidah is the main port serving the north of the country, which is the area that's Houthi controlled. So that's where its food comes in from, but it's also where it's getting, one assumes, its weapons from Iran. The Houthis are getting their weapons from Iran. So that was a fairly significant but concentrated blow. There were other sites hit as well. As you say, the million-dollar question is, what targets are they trying to hit? Now, obviously, if they went after Iran's oil installations, for example, this kind of weaponry can cause an enormous amount of damage to Iran's main oil refinery at Karg Island, or its port at Bandar Abbas, and other places associated with the oil industry. I mean, you could really do a substantial amount of damage because oil facilities by their nature are quite concentrated. Now, if you were going to go after the entire extent of Iran's military program, you'll probably need to use more than this to take out all of it, unless you were very clever. And I say unless there are other things which haven't been picked up by the satellite imagery. My assumption, if this is the extent of it, is that there's going to be, as I say, there's probably going to be a combined attack involving, maybe a longer range assassination program, but a cyber attack and this program together could, between them, cause a severe weakening of Iran's military installations if it's successful. And Israel tend to be quite successful at these operations. So I suspect that's what we're looking at, is a degrading of Iran's military abilities, but not a total wipeout.